Do you want to start? Okay.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Monday, August 19th, 2024 meeting of the El Monte City School District Board of Education, and we call the meeting to order at 5:04. I'll begin with roll call. Mrs. Cobian?
Present.
Mr. Peralta?
Present.
Mrs. Mendez Garcia?
Present.
Rivas present, and Mr. Segrist is not here. Will you please join me in the flag salute? Please stand. Ready, begin. Thank you. We'll begin with cabinet reports. Dr. Garcia?
Thank you, President Rivas. Good evening, everyone. We're really excited to present tonight's cabinet update. I know we took a little bit of a hiatus in the last few meetings, but with the return to school, we have plenty of things to share and to celebrate. So as usual, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Herrera to kick us off with the business update.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. So we'll first start with our maintenance and facilities team. Over the summer, they were busy at work making sure that our grounds and our classrooms were ready to welcome kids back on the first day of school. As we've expanded our summer programming, right, with servicing more and more kids, we have found that our summers are getting shorter and shorter, which is a good thing. We'll be able to operate more days throughout the school year and in the summertime. Typically, we do a lot of deep cleaning in the spring break, winter breaks over the summer, but we're also now offering a lot of expanded learning after school, before school intersession offerings on those days, and we'll hear more about that this evening with the presentation we have as an item of interest. So that has created some challenges for our team, but nonetheless, they're very flexible and they do everything that's necessary to get our classrooms and our schools ready for the first day of school. We had a smooth start of the school year. As we typically do over the summer, we proactively service all of our HVAC units across the district to make sure that they're in optimal condition and ready for the heat, right, that comes in August and September and October when we welcome back our teachers and our students back. We have expanded our custodial operations. We saw during the pandemic, right, the focus on cleaning standards and the spirit of elevating the work. We wanted to continue to keep that high priority on cleanliness. So as we pivot and move away from the pandemic, we still want to keep the focus on cleanliness, whether it's during the pandemic or post-pandemic. The one good thing that we learned during the pandemic is spotlighting what we can do in the area of keeping our campuses and classrooms clean. We recently, in the past few months, expanded our floor care team, adding a district-wide custodial lead position that helps support our custodians throughout the district, and we added a custodian to our floor care team. And so we're really happy with that expansion, and it helps us to keep up with the increased demands within the operations that we've seen with the expanded number of days that we operate throughout the school year and number of students that we're operating. With more and more kids on our campus for longer hours and more days throughout the year, it's good for the students, and obviously there's an impact on our facilities. Now we pivot to our furniture refresh, which our facilities team also played a role in. These are some pictures here. I believe that's Rio Hondo and Sherpster classrooms that we set up. So we have purchased new furniture. We started the initiative over the past year. And as we looked at different renderings, we finally have introduced a new furniture in our TGA classrooms across the district. We've also piloted a few kinder, first grade, and special ed classrooms across the district. And the hope is to get feedback from staff, right? It's one thing to look at furniture renderings on a piece of paper. It's another thing to see them implemented in the classroom and get the feedback from staff and see how they operate with students utilizing that furniture. So we'll receive that feedback and continue to expand the furniture refresh and move up one grade level at a time. And as we continue to move forward with additional purchases, you obviously will see that show up on our purchase order report. Right now, a furniture refresh per classroom is trending in the $30,000 range or so when we think about what the cost is roughly per classroom. So we've set aside money in our budget, and those are some pictures of some of the first few classrooms that we've refreshed. Nutrition Services was busy at work over the summer, feeding our students in addition to community members. We also recently added or adjusted positions within our Nutrition Services operations team. We had 14 part-time positions that were 30 hours a week that we elevated up to 40 hours a week. And we have some exciting plans for how we can expand our feeding program to feed more and more students after school, whether they are participating in our after-school program or not. And we will bring that information forward and share it with the board and the community and our stakeholders in the coming weeks. And so that will help us expand our feeding capacity. We also were able to provide feeding opportunities to our McKinney-Vento students during the month of July via a grant. So we're happy to provide that. And our food service department is always pursuing grants. As you can see there, we got some grants to replace some ovens at some of our school sites. And in an effort to bring in locally sourced fruit and vegetables, we received a fresh fruit and vegetable grant at New Lexington and Wilkerson. As many of you were there at Columbia and saw the wonderful welcome back breakfast, our team did some work there over the summer to elevate and improve the sound quality and the visual display there. And we're very excited about the improvements. We have some other ideas on how we can further improve the acoustics in the Columbia Gymnasium, and we hope that this will open our eyes. This was hopefully the first of many wonderful events that we will hold in the gym going forward. So everything went smoothly, and our facilities and IT team played an important role in improving the sound quality and installing that much larger projector screen there. Something else that we want to highlight is the parking improvement project at Botero School. So a few months ago, the board authorized the removal of some portables. As you know, with declining enrollment, we have additional classrooms, and we're able to adjust some of the classrooms that were occupied in some of those portables. Most of them were empty. With the removal of those portables, we redesigned and we're able to add 40 additional parking spots there. So that's a big help for not only the staff, but for our parents and visitors as they come onto the campus, right? There's more spots for them to be able to assist with the pickup and drop off. We were also able to change the bus pickup location closer to the front of the school, and we think that will be a safer location and a better location for students to enter and exit the bus. And last but not least, our school facilities bond. At our last board meeting, obviously the board allowed us to move forward with ordering the bond measure. We filed all the necessary paperwork with the county registrar, and we recently found out over the weekend that we were assigned Measure ME. And so that will be on the November 5th bond measure, and we look to our community for support in helping us get that across the approval line. It would bring in $105 million of facility bonds that we can use to improve our facilities. Tonight we have our bond counsel, our legal counsel here from DWK that will be providing us a training on the do's and don'ts during the campaign season.
Good evening. Can you move it forward? Thank you. So we started off our school year focusing on social emotional learning and building community with the focus on unity, getting to know our students and building relationships. And so we're using our second step curriculum and Leader in Me, focusing on those first 8 days of instruction, and utilizing community circles to really build community within the classrooms, and then setting up expectations for the year, but really focusing this time on just building that community in the classroom, getting to know our students, building that safe environment in the classroom, and building those connections for students. And then, based on the work by Dr. Robin Avalar LaSalle and her book on Where Equity Lives, we have defined the El Monte City School District's floor. And how she defines the floor is not it's not to be taken in a negative way. It's really ensuring what all students in the El Monte City School District will receive. And so our floor in the El Monte City School District is that we will ensure that all students will be on grade level. And so this is what all students will receive in the El Monte City School District. And the way that they will receive this is that we have certain conditions in place. And so it's going to be a lot of work, and there's a lot that will need to happen to make to ensure that this is happening for all students. But we're really excited about this. We will ensure that all students possess the literacy skills necessary for reading by third grade. El Monte City School District will ensure that all fifth grade students are proficient in division and fractions. And this is a lever to ensure that all students are ready for successfully completed integrated one math. And I'll give you some background on that in a bit. El Monte City School District will ensure that all eighth grade students are proficient writers. This is not just left for the eighth grade teachers. This is something that obviously needs to start, in kindergarten and all the way up. And then El Monte City School District will ensure that all emergent bilinguals are reclassified within 3 years of their initial LPAC assessment. And that is also to ensure that we are not sending students to the high school as long-term English learners. And so something that we did over the summer was share with our principals, and then when school began, shared with our teachers, the A through G completion rates in our high school district. And it was sobering data, and something that we realized is that's really our data, right? That is information, and that is something that we control in the elementary school district, because the high school district really only has those students for 4 years, and really it's those first 2 years that they really can make a change, to prepare them for college. And so it's in our hands to prepare them. And knowing that the UCs really look at calculus now as that key trigger or really, component to see whether or not they will be ready for UC system, because they no longer use the SATs. That means that we need to ensure that our students are ready for math in the high school, which means that they should be taking integrated one math with us to really make sure that they're ready for that higher level calculus course. And so that's why our goal is that they will be taking integrated one math with us in the 8th grade. And one of the triggers is that 5th grade, a math of being proficient in division and fractions. That's one of the trigger points. And so, as I mentioned, there's a lot of work that's going to go into this, but these are the conditions that we have set for us and that we will be meeting. And so our focus is to begin this work is, again, going back to the beginning of identifying our essential standards, is to work on some unit planning and creating common formative assessments, to continue to monitor the work that we're doing and to engage in a plan, do, study, act cycle. And Dr. Torres in the instruction department has set aside time every 20 days for teachers to engage in this process and for the TOSAs to be part of that process with the teachers, so that there's this constant monitoring, constant planning that we're doing. And this is aligned to those conditions that we have just reviewed. We're also excited that we are going to once again partner with Rio Hondo College for dual enrollment for Potrero and Columbia schools in the fall. It'll be a non-credit course in Leadership A. And then what we're hoping to do is that those students will be ready for Leadership B in the spring. That may be a 3-unit course. And so more to come on that, on the Leadership B component. And then coming soon is a partnership with Pasadena City College as well.
All right, good evening. In personnel this summer, we were busy hiring, ensuring that we had all of our positions filled. So our focus tonight was just kind of re-highlight some of our incredible new EMCSD family members. You'll see over 40 people shared in these couple slides, ranging from certificated staff to instructional staff, some new music teachers, speech and language pathologists, and so on. Some of these were mid-year or end-of-year hires at the end of last year, so we didn't have the opportunity to celebrate them at the start of last year like we always do, so we wanted to make sure that we highlighted and welcomed them into the family officially. So we're excited about that. And along with that, every year we conduct a new educator training, and so this year we had 16 new certificated educators to our family. Some of them general ed, special education, some support positions such as speech and language and so on. And so there they are right there, the 16, all still smiling after a few days of intense training that was pretty much designed and put on by our Ed Services Department, so we want to thank them for that support. Robert? And so some of the things that training consisted of over the course of 3 or 4 days was, the first day and building community within your classroom, so support for that aspect of it. The first days of the new school year, the first 5 days plan, standards-based grading, common formative assessments, our various online platforms, small group instruction, math instruction, ELA support, Leader in Me training, because we recognized a few years ago that we went forward with that initiative, and since then we've had a lot of new people coming in, and so we felt it was important to provide that background and foundation for our new employees as well. And then obviously social media, in terms of how to utilize social media through the school, and then the do's and don'ts per se of social media as well. And you'll see in the photo there's one of our TOSAs, Krista, who is leading one of the groups in looks like Dasmati found a way to insert himself into a picture there. There he is on the screen. So, and then one of the things we did last year, so we wanted to continue this wonderful tradition, is the idea of just kind of getting together and mixing. So you'll see some photos outside. So the initial day of our training, Cabinet went over, introduced our new educators, welcome them, just talk to them about our vision here in the El Monte City School District, and ultimately thank them for choosing and saying yes to our district, right, and our students. And then a couple days later, we had a morning sort of mixer social, and we asked all admin to come, regardless of whether you had a new person coming to your site or not, and just come and just meet the new educators and family members and just kind of mingle with them all. So you see some of those photos there, and then you see another one of the training photos. So we're excited about this program that we've established in terms of ensuring that our new hires have some support. And then we're now working on how do we, replicate that on our classified side, because it's a little different. Classified, we hire, throughout the school year, right? Where teachers or certificated staff are normally the start of the school year. So that's our next step in terms of that piece.
I'm catching up on the pictures. I love to see all the new employees. To wrap up our presentation this evening, I want to just express my gratitude for your support in allowing us to have this wonderful tradition of our welcome back meeting/breakfast. So we welcomed everyone to Columbia School, and happy for the partnership. Cyber Yogurt provided acai bowls, and it was wonderful to work with a local community vendor, and they were very well received, I should say. And then, we brought staff into the gym, and just the energy was so amazing. It was just something that I think will just carry us through the end of the year. We had an exceptional keynote speaker, Dr. Robin Avalar-LaSalle, who inspired us, motivated us, had us shed a few tears. But I think what was really important is that she highlighted that we're a very good district, and she also called us to action. There's still so much room for us to grow, and we want to strive to be a great district. And so that's the message that we're carrying forward as we continue to really evolve our Elevate theme. I'm so grateful to Dr. Avalar for her keynote address. And then the very next day was our first day of school, and that was fun, just to see kids smiling, parents smiling at the drop-off, and all the excitement and enthusiasm for a new year ahead was really fun to see throughout the district. Great energy, and I should say good weather on those first 2 days, too, so we were very happy about that. We are in back-to-school season, and so we did have a few schools that had back-to-school night already last week. A few did it the night before school started. A few did it on the first day of school, and then many are happening this week and next week. So we do invite the board, if you are able to attend, feel free to stop by. But it's an opportunity for parents to get to know teachers, get to know their school community. Really neat things happening at all the back-to-school nights. I see a lot of just partners also there talking about the programs that they're offering and how they can be partners to the school district and to families, which is so wonderful to see. And lastly, this is hot off the press. Today we received word that Lagore was just recertified as a lighthouse school. So we want to congratulate Lagore School for their hard work and recertification. And just really fun to see our schools just continue in that cycle of recertification, making sure that all kids have the skill set to navigate and know that they are leaders in their own destiny, right? And so as a school district, we continue to be a partner to our community and to our students, but at the end of the day, we believe in our students and we believe that they have the capacity to lead in many different ways. So congratulations to Lagore School. That concludes our presentation for this evening.
All right, thank you so much. What a wonderful cabinet report, as always. And we'll move on to our board reports. Mrs. Kobian?
Thank you. I just want to definitely welcome everybody back. Very excited for this school year. And just, want things to highlight. I mean, I'm sure everyone had a great summer, but very excited about all the back to school events that happened over the last couple of weeks. I got to attend the one at the Jeff Seymour Center, I think it was last weekend or 2 weekends ago, where families could come out and get to know some of the resources in the community. They were helped with enrolling online and getting all their parent portal up and running. And then, of course, the Children's Farmers Market, which I love to see. It's just such a neat opportunity for kids to go and pick out produce and things like that. And just, again, just really excited at the festive way everyone is welcome back to school. Definitely can see it on kids' faces that it's a place that is welcoming to them. So I want to thank everyone who was a part of all of that. And that concludes my update.
Thank you. Mr. Peralta?
Nothing for me right now.
Okay. And Mrs. Mendez-Garcia?
Yeah, I'd just like to highlight just the welcome back. And I know in other districts, depending on the size, are able to do that for the whole staff. But I just feel like, again, El Monte City School District does it in such a unique way. Just the fact that we highlight all our new hires, or not forgetting the ones who were hired in spring, just kind of be just that awareness. It's just something very unique to us that's not initially found in other districts. So just want to congratulate the staff personnel for working on that. And I really liked what you were sharing with Mr. Hare about piloting furniture, because I think it's so important that a lot of times it's like, let's just buy a bunch of furniture, but being mindful of let's try it out. Let's see what works in TK and special education, because you may have something in mind and then you purchase it after and you're like, okay, now we're stuck with all this furniture, right? So I'm glad that, again, we're being mindful about the purchases that we're making and making sure that whatever we get is the right fit for our classes and our students. And then just lastly, it was great to see through social media. Our school sites do such a great job with promoting their schools through social media. So it was great to see all the different ways they welcomed back students that first day of school. And just making it exciting and then connecting it with our first 5 days. Again, just being very mindful with the decisions that we're making as well for the education of our students.
Thank you. And I'd just like to note that Mr. Segrist is present. And Mr. Segrist, we're sharing board reports right now. If there's anything that you'd like to share, you've got the opportunity.
Only that the welcoming back of the staff was outstanding. That's one of the best things I've ever attended. The enthusiasm and the setup outside, and the speaker was dynamic. I happened to have met her before at CLSBA, so I learned a lot while I was there. I'm so proud of the fact that we were able to welcome the employees back to the district that way. It was beautifully done. Congratulations
Thank you.
to you.
Yeah, I agree. That really was a very special morning, the welcome back breakfast, and just so much positive energy. So thank you so much for creating that space for all of us. And yes, the keynote speaker, outstanding. And Dr. Pinedo, I was really excited to see the items of the EMCSD floor expressed like that. I'm really looking forward to the work ahead. So. Thank you all, and we'll move on to the next items of interest. Item 1, General Obligation Bond Measure Election Campaign Conduct Training.
Okay, thank you, Board President, members of the Governing Board. This evening, we have with us our bond counsel, our legal counsel, with us, Sam Santana. As he makes his way up to the podium, right? We brought him in. Obviously, we have gone 10 years since our last school bond, facilities bond measure. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to provide an update to the board, to the cabinet, to our stakeholders on the campaign conduct that we should abide by when we enter this bond measure election season, right? So we officially were there August 5th when we voted to order the election on November 5th. And Sam will walk us through the do's and don'ts, what we can do, what we cannot do, now that we are in official, the window, right? The next 3 months will go by very quickly, and your role as a school board and as district staff, it's important for us to be aware of what we can and can't do once we call for a school bond. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sam Santana.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Sam Santana, I'm a shareholder with Dana Swallover Kelly. I'm here tonight in my role as bond counsel for the district. And before I start, Dr. Garcia, is school starting earlier and earlier every year? This is,
It is.
we already had back to school. It's not even Labor Day. Amazing.
But the pumpkin spice lattes are out, Sam, so it is
Got
a
to
trigger
keep up with the
for-
pumpkin
right.
spice release. Good. Okay, so I'm going to control the PowerPoint from here. So first of all, congrats on getting the bond measure on the ballot. That's a big deal. $105 million will be up for election, for authorization by the electors on November 5th of this year. So once you adopted that resolution, that starts the campaign period. And that's what we're talking about today is what are the parameters as to what you can and can't do as a district, as elected board members, as staff, in order to support the bond. Obviously, we want people to vote for it, but there are certain restrictions that we have to abide by in doing so. I can talk about this for hours, but Jose said keep it to 10 minutes. So we're going to get a really high-level overview this afternoon. And I wanted to lead off, I guess, with the real takeaway. If you're going to remember one thing, you can look at the first bullet point on this slide, which is that we can't use district resources to advocate for or against a bond measure. And that's really what it boils down to. That's a statutory prohibition, so that's in the education code. It applies to not only bond measures, but it also applies to any elected office, any national or other measure on the ballot. And the frequent question we get is, what are the resources? So it can be anything from employee time, so we can't have employees advocating for the bond during business hours using their work time. We can't use district email to disseminate information. That's considered a district resource. District facilities are district resources as well, but as you may know, there is such a thing as the Civic Center Act where we make our facilities available to the public. And so if, for example, a pro-bond group wanted to go through the Civic Center Act and request the use of a facility, we can permit that. The flip side of that is that we also have to make it available if there's an anti-bond measure group that also wants to use district facilities. So we have to be neutral in permitting our district facilities to be used, but that is kind of a little wiggle room for the use of resources from the district. This last bullet point includes some of the other resources that can and can't be used. So anything like cell phones, copiers, computer programs, essentially anything that's owned by the district or paid for via tax dollars, we cannot use to advocate for the passage of the bond measure. Any questions on this slide before we move on? Okay. And so when we do use district resources, we have to have impartial and neutral information that is disseminated. So we can use, for example, email and copiers if we're going to disseminate information about the bond, but it has to be neutral and impartial and portray both sides of the measure. And so it has to be a fair, impartial presentation of relevant facts, good and bad, that would help the electorate in reaching an informed judgment. So the good would obviously be all the benefits that the bond measure would enable the district to pay for. The quote-unquote bad is the tax rate. So that's, what the homeowners are going to have to pay. I can't remember exactly what it was, Jose. I think it was like $25.
It's $30 per
$30.
100,000 of AV.
So $30 per $100,000. So if we're going to disseminate information that says, hey, the bond measures for $105 million, we're going to fund, these types of projects, we also have to include the tax rate and how much it's going to cost to pay for that. So we can't just portray one side of the coin, we have to portray both sides of the coin. And so the determination as to what constitutes a partisan position is not only the content of what we disseminate, it's also the style, the tenor, and the timing. So how does it look? What's the overall message, even though the words may be neutral, what's the tenor and the timing? And we'll talk about these things in the next couple of slides. Okay, so what type of measure information may the district provide? As we just mentioned, it has to be informational and neutral. We can't be inflammatory or argumentative. We can't look like typical campaign mailer. So that's kind of the style that we're talking about. It has to be, try to avoid looking like a campaign mailer as much as you can. This is something that the FPPC looks at very carefully. They're very conservative, and they will look at the style and make sure that it's more of a neutral style and not so much of a campaign style. And like I said, we want to have an accurate representation. So we want to have the expenditure plan. We don't want to just highlight, what the great possible projects are. We have to highlight or include as much information about the project list as we can. And I think, Jose, the project list was pretty extensive.
Yes, the project list was broad enough where the school district and the board, obviously, we had the flexibility to execute various projects, but we were very intentional to list our projects as district-wide because we know that the needs of every school are unique.
Yeah, so if we're going to have informational flyers that go out, we want to include as much of that as possible and not just, well, we know this polled or this is really popular, so that we're only going to highlight one thing. We have to include as much as we can in that documentation. But there are some things that you can use district resources on. So the district may author a ballot argument, and that's something that was turned in this past Friday. That is a statutory exception to using district resources, as we may use district resources to have an argument in favor of the ballot. I don't know if there was an argument against that was filed. I guess we don't know that yet.
I don't believe so, but we've put a request into the county registrar to confirm that there was no argument against.
So if there was an argument that was filed against the measure, we can also use district resources to counter that argument. So that's in the statute as well, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The board can take a position on the measure. So you can, as a board, take a position on the measure. We just cannot advocate that people vote for the measure. So as a district, we can say, yes, obviously we already put it on the ballot, we're in favor of it, but we want to stop short of any advocacy as part of official board action. And also board members and employees, just because you work for the district or you're appointed and elected onto the board doesn't mean that you lose your First Amendment rights of free speech. You still have the right to advocate, you just have to do it on your own time. And you have to do it without using district resources. So Jose, if you wanted to advocate in favor, for example, you would do it obviously off of business hours, not using a district cell phone. I don't know if you have one, or if you have a district car, you wouldn't use it to drive to the event. It would all be using your own resources on your own time. And I would recommend that if you do that, you just make it clear that you're doing so on your own time. Sometimes I'll get emails or calls from my clients when they're advocating for a measure or they're looking for a donation for the measure, but they'll be sending it from their own personal email or Gmail. They'll be doing it after hours, after 5 p.m. or during lunch hour. Obviously, you have a lunch hour as a district employee, so you can do that, but you just have to be very careful in tracking that and making sure that you're clear on that type of thing. Okay, so we talked about not using any resources. Also, I guess the second bullet point is important. So I would recommend not using a really key important resource is the district's email system. Obviously, you have access to all the students and their parents, so I would guard that very carefully. So if there's an outside group that says, hey, we want to use your district email system to disseminate this information, I would advocate, or I would advise against doing so. Even if we think it's neutral, if it's an outside group, we don't want them being able to use that. You, the district, could use it for informational activity, but I would recommend not letting any outside group use your email system.
I have a question when it says outside working hours. Are we not board members 24 hours a day?
Yes, you are, and that's something that I think Dr. Garcia asked previously. So obviously, she's the superintendent 24/7, all 365 days of the year. So yes, that's a very good question. You are representing the district. At the same time, you still have a First Amendment right to free speech. And so you, I think, in your particular positions as board members, as superintendent, you can still make that off after hours, not district resources use of your personal time. I would just be very clear when you do so. If you're at an event, if you're at a Kiwanis Club or Lions Club or somewhere giving a speech, I would say, hey, I'm here on my own time. I'm not here as the board president. I'm not here as, the superintendent. I'm here on my own time after work. Just make that distinction verbally, and maybe make a note of it in your journal or something like that in case there's a question. But that's a great point. Because I think oftentimes, public perception is probably worse than any kind of actual legal statutory violation is, well, you were at this meeting and you were, using district resources. No, I wasn't. But you have to be clear, careful of that. Obviously, where you can get tripped up on some of those things, and just be very careful. And to your point, there is no authority that directly prohibits the board member from taking a position, but, kind of as at the discussion we just had, you just want to be very careful in doing so. Be clear about your time and how you got there, your use of resources, and that you're on there on your own personal time. So I think we covered these. Oh, the second one, I think also, you want to avoid having a quorum of the board take part in any kind of event, including campaign committees. If you do want to be on a campaign committee, you can have less than a quorum or one person from the board take part in that. And I don't know if there are any campaign committees that are going to be formed or that you know of being formed.
Yeah, I'm told that there's a campaign committee.
Okay, so you've
in
heard of
favor
one.
of it, and
Yeah.
and it's as soon as we have that information, I'm sure they will make their presence known to the community.
Perfect. Yeah, so I would just be careful on this slide on the second point. As board members, you are free to take part in that kind of committee, but if it's going to be a quorum, it shouldn't be. It should be 2 people or less. Okay, because in that point, the point is you could inadvertently create a board meeting if you're talking about things that are within the parameters of the board's jurisdiction, and you don't want to violate the Brown Act in that instance. Okay, so conclusion, there can be repercussions. It's potentially a misdemeanor to violate these statutory prohibitions. As I mentioned, I think, though, however, public opinion and public perception is probably the more likely downside of it. You don't want to appear to be using district resources, even though if you're, legally on the right, you want to be clear about your use of district resources and you're there on your own time. The second bullet point is that closer to Election Day, the FPPC does look very carefully at communications. So this is the timing component that we talked about when we said style, tenor, and timing. For example, the FPPC has reviewed a campaign that was informational. However, the informational campaign that the district paid for coincided exactly with the campaign period, and that district didn't have a prior practice of sending out informational bulletins to their constituents. And so in that instance, they said it did violate the restrictions because it was only during the campaign period. It was, for example, it would have been from the day after the bond measure was passed by the board all the way through election day, and then it stopped. And so in that instance, it's very much kind of the timing is campaign-like, and the FPPC is very conservative in their interpretation of these violations, and so they deem that to be against the statutory prohibition. So I don't know if the district does send out informational bulletins or emails to their families, but if you do, then I would just continue that kind of timing. I think as we get closer to the election, I would probably kind of lessen that information, just so that it's not viewed to be in violation. But if you have a consistent pattern of providing information to your families, I think you're fine in continuing that. Okay? And then any informational items that the district is going to issue to their families, I would recommend that you have one point of contact within the district. I think you guys have a public information officer, so I think he would naturally be the point person to review those items and make sure that he's comfortable with it. I would recommend against having multiple points of dissemination just to avoid any issues. And obviously, if there's any questions or concerns, you can always contact me or send me an email, and we can talk about those concerns. Okay, so really quick 10,000-foot overview of a kind of complicated topic, but hopefully it provides some useful tools for you guys to use going forward, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that were on the top of your mind right now.
I was wondering if, I don't know if we do this or not, but like if we were to host an informational session for the public, like say there's a bond and so it would be people could come and ask questions or find out more about it. Is that, it's like something neutral where it's like a forum?
Yeah, I think that would be okay.
Okay.
I think that would be okay. Like I said at the beginning, I would just give the full picture. So not only like it's going to raise all this money for the district, here's all these great projects. Also, the tax rate's going to be $30 per $100,000 of assessed value. It's going to be for X number of years. I forget the length, but Jose has all the info. And so just a well-rounded picture. I think full information would be perfect. I think if you do have that kind of forum and someone shows up wanting to give the other side of it, then I would, probably feel obligated to let them have a portion of that time as well if they were interested in doing that. But that's the type of thing that I think would be okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Well done.
Item 2, under items of interest, EMCSD programs, Sparking Ingenuity presentation.
President Rivas and Governing Board, with your support, we've been able to offer some wonderful enrichment opportunities for our students after school, during our intersession. And so this evening, Dr. Muniz is going to be reviewing some of the programs that we've provided and also giving you a sneak peek into programs we'll be providing throughout this year.
Testing. Good evening. All right. Good evening, everybody. Governing board members, Madam President, Ms. Rivas, Ms. Cobian, Mr. Segrest, Mrs. Mendez Garcia, and Mr. Peralta. Welcome to the family. My name is Jacob Muniz. I'm the coordinator of engagement and enrichment, and it is my honor to share what we've been able to accomplish together with the amazing vision of the people in this room. I have to thank you, the board, our superintendent, cabinet, my boss, Ms. Tran, not only for the vision, but the motivation to make these sort of big ideas come true into fruition and reality for our children to enjoy. I have now been with our district, this is going on my 3rd year, and in 26 years of education as a teacher, TOSA, and principal, I have never been more fulfilled in allowing, this job has allowed the impact that education is all about to happen, and I'm able to take a front row seat and see it. So I thank you. It's a huge honor. Just a couple of topics on our menu here for today. We're going to talk about self-actualization, spring and summer recap, our preview for 24-25, the Leader in Me integration into the expanded learning division, the Enrichment Fridays, Saturday Academy, study trips, partnerships, and our before and after school program. I like to call this the roadmap for how we're going to elevate. Those are our topics. So using Maslow's hierarchy of needs as our basis, we are no longer focusing on physiological. We are going to start from the love and belonging and go straight up to the self-actualization. And what self-actualization means to me is Alamani City students and families and community will benefit from our program and our rollout because we know that the impact is changing lives, because that is what it strategically has been designed to do. A little bit about our spring recap. This last spring, 2024, over 4,400 students were served, all 14 sites, plus Doris Dan Kids Campus, and our Opportunity Program featured everything under the sun that is engaging and enriching for our students to participate hands-on and get a glimpse of what they might actually end up declaring at UCLA when they start as a freshman, and they won't enter like me as undeclared. They'll know, I want to study engineering. One of the highlights of our spring was our pilot program, Accelerated Achievement at Potrero. We demoed a hybrid tutoring program where we had individuals, highly trained and highly qualified staff in person with our ELs, as well as a online tutoring program simultaneously supporting our children. So it's a demo where we've figured out what might work for future, and we're going to share that with our principals and see how that might impact our students further. Summer recap, almost 1,200 students served at 9 sites. The phenomenal thing about this is ELOP in the state of California, CDE only requires us to run 9 hours of programming. And this is the big vision of our team. They say, well, can we stay we stayed last year till 4:30. Can we stay till 5? Wait, can we stay till 6? And the answer is yes. So we offered 10 hours of programming for our students and children in the community so that our families would be supported, those that are working 2 or 3 jobs and dual income earners. So we're trying to support our families and maximize that, again, that impact. You might be saying to yourself, Leader in Me is what we do during the day. CDE also mandates that ELOP complement what we do during the day. So what you're going to see this year is Leader in Me integration in the expanded learning division, meaning the after-school space, the before-school space, the intercession space. What we're going to do is elevate by integrating the 7 habits into our expanded learning experiences for our kids. And it's kind of actually how we roll things out. We always are looking for the win-win. And we model that for our staff and we model that for our students because that's how we learn. And I say that out loud and I remind my staff all the time 24/7 to be metacognitive. Share that out loud because kids are listening to your schema and that's how we build on each other's greatness. Enrichment Fridays. Before I go there, I just want to share real quick. When I arrived about 2 years ago, we were spending about $190,000 in ELOP. My first year, we spent $9 million. We are pushing $12 million this last year and rising. So again, it's an honor. And all this to our kids directly servicing our students. Now, Enrichment Fridays, I don't know if you had shared this idea with me before I got hired if I would have took the job, but it's too late. I'm in the hot seat and we got to make this happen. So Enrichment Fridays, the 6 Fridays, this to me, for our families, for our community, for our staff, in terms of mental health and what it's going to do for the experience of our children. We are about to witness a partnership unlike any other. So yes, it's going to have trips. Yes, it's going to give the hands-on experiences, and there's going to be themes around every single one of those. But as you'll see in a future slide, near future slide, we have partnered, thanks to, again, everyone's vision in this room, including Dr. Pinedo, because she was like, wait, do you think we should call YMCA? I said, why not? So in order for this to occur and to be supported with highly qualified staff, we are not only partnering with Learn, we are partnering with the YMCA Santa Anita, we are partnering with Parks and Rec, and we are partnering with Windtree. It takes a village. And it's pretty exciting so far. What we have planned for November 1st, our first Enrichment Friday. Saturday Academy, formerly known as Saturday Learn Academy. The Saturday Academy will feature Voice and Choice. It has a revamped literacy component. No more packets. No more packets. So we will no longer be killing trees. We're going to be adding a literacy component that includes not only a read aloud, but something that the children can take back on a Monday and take an AR quiz, accelerated reader, and gain some points. So it's, again, Leader in Me, win-win integration all around. Having said that, I'm not sure if you guys received a report, but we approached almost $1 million of recouped attendance last year because of the Saturday Academy. So we're shooting for that and more. That's recouped ADA. Study trips. So this is the 135 slide. Jacob, why do you call it the 135 slide? Because in 4th grade, they go for 1 day. In 6th grade, they go for 3 days, and in 8th grade, they go for 5 days. This is the 135 slide. What it shows and it demonstrates in terms of our impact in this community is we are all about elevation. And JFK, John F. Kennedy, said it best. One of my favorite quotes from JFK was, "A rising tide raises all ships." He said boats, but I like ships. It sounds fancier. Rising tide raises all boats is what JFK said. This is what it's about. This is the impact we're having. These are the life-changing moments that we are creating for our kids, and I couldn't, again, be more honored to help usher them in and be the steward for them. Intercession, state requires 30. We go over 30 days to be offered. State requires that we focus on TK to 6th. We are allowed to offer programming TK to 8th, all 14 sites, and that includes winter, spring, and summer. The partnerships. This year, we're featuring something new on the menu, and that is our partnership with Santa Anita YMCA. They are going to offer a Model UN experience to our middle schoolers in the spring that culminates in a 3-day summit. I can't wait. As a former poli-sci major at UCLA, can't wait. This is going to be exciting. We are also partnering again, obviously, with Parks and Rec. They are going to offer cheerleading year-round to our students in 3rd grade and up, and athletics, 3 sports and 3 seasons, including swim. And that is for our students. Athletics is 3rd grade and up. Sorry, cheerleading is 2nd grade and up. Partnerships, Doris Dan, always looking to innovate, always looking to level up, always looking to elevate. Last year, we went from T-shirts to Adidas jerseys and full-on kits. In soccer, they call them kits, not uniforms. Full-on kits. We are going to level up this year and go to Nike, my personal favorite. We also hired 45 high schoolers from El Monte Union to be education assistants at Doris Dan. I trained them, and I'm going to retrain them this fall. They are there. It's giving back. It's the ultimate cycle of giving back to the community. It's the epitome of giving back. Taking your own youth to serve your youth at a high level. I've never seen it before. Thank you, Dr. Garcia, for the vision. It's a pleasure to make it happen. So much fun. We also have the certified coaches. Before and after school program. This year we are focused on impact data. It's not about what do you want to participate in. It's how are we changing your lives. The expectation, because we are strategic, is that we will have changed lives when we're done. The question is how. And every child has a story. Every family. We're looking at collecting that data this year. We're also going to level up on our professional development. Like I said, I'll be training our education assistants. The same module that I used and borrowed and modified from AVID strategies, those of us that know AVID, advancement via individual determination. The 3 strategies in my professional development model that I designed, I also taught to our after-school partners Learn, including their high school division. So it's about being a role model, it's about being active, and it's about inquiry-based. This year, again, we'll feature Center Stage, Musical Theater Showcase. Last year's showcase was a hit. If you joined us at Almani High, you know. It was wonderful, and you can see the pictures of our brilliant children performing. This year, we're looking at 2 seasons, 2 performances, a showcase in the winter and a showcase in the spring. Conga Kids, again, like Leader in Me, you're thinking, wait, don't we do that during the day? Yes, you do. Conga Kids has a new expanded learning component, so we are going to complement what we do during the day with Conga Kids, starting with 3 schools. Well, sorry, and for those of us that are new to Conga Kids, it's the social emotional learning through dance.
And that's not just 5th grade, right, Dr. Muniz?
Correct.
Right.
Multiple grades.
Yeah, during the school day, it's only for 5th grade students.
Thank you. Thank you for that point. So multiple grades, and you may ask yourself, well, how do you determine the grades? The curriculum is designed for several grades. What we do is we work with our principals to focus on giving our unduplicated students priority. Our unduplicated being our ELs, McKinney, Foster Youth, and Free Lunch. Film Academy with Youth Cinema. We are now an award-winning district in school. We have Potrero and Cherry Lee won some awards last year at the film festivals that they attended. We are going to be featuring public service announcements and short films again. In our after-school component, it's 34 weeks, 2 schools, Potrero and Wright Middle School. And the mentors are included in our package and our contract, and we will be attending the Los Angeles Latino Film Festival again this spring 25. This year, district-wide, what we took Chef Alex, we love Chef Alex in his kitchen in Monrovia. We took him, we cloned him, and now he has several versions of himself that are going to spread out throughout our district. 18 sessions, that means 18 schools will have a chance, which means some schools will double up, and we'll select those schools strategically to receive 8 weeks of culinary academy from pasta, pastries, and more. We also will be featuring, again, mariachi music at the middle school level, 5th grade and above, with an end-of-the-year performance. So that's exciting.
May I interrupt you for a moment?
Yes, sir.
How many schools are in the mariachi program?
All of our middle schools.
All of them?
All middle schools. Yes. Last year, we invested in instruments for all the middle schools, and we have those now. So we don't, one-time purchase, the instruments are still working. That I know of. And so, yeah, we'll feature that, and we'll gather up some more groups this year. And we learned from Mariachi 1.0, I call it, our last year's fall rollout wasn't enough. One time a week, it needed to be 2 times. So we collaborated with Dr. Torres in instruction, and we came up and redesigned it. So 2.0 is twice a week, 3 hours. And so we're really our goal is to develop the love of music, not just mariachi music, but music, period. I myself play the trumpet, marching baritone, and euphonium, and I still have both horns myself at home. I read music, I play music, I call it my 3rd language, and that's what we're trying to gift our kids. It's really a gift. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
About the mariachi program, have we thought of linking that up with the high schools and continuing on?
I love that you said that. We're not only going to try and link that up with the high schools, we're also going to do that with the sports. We intentionally designed the seasons to align with Almani Union High School sports seasons. And what we're going to do is ask the high school to visit us.
And another one about sports. Can we do something with golf? There is the Tiger Woods Foundation that has money that want to promote golf.
Yes, sir. I've reached out to Tiger Woods. They haven't, the foundation, not him himself, I don't have his number, but they haven't gotten back to me yet. We'll continue that. Thank you for the recommendation. We did start a pilot program last spring at Rio Hondo with Arcadia Par 3 Golf Course. They are sponsored by Nike. They have personal coaches, and so we're pursuing that this fall with Mr. Ortega's help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation and the heart behind everything that you're doing. Speaking as a parent, it's just so important to all of us parents that our kids are that people believe in them and that they work for the very, very best for them. And so that's just what your whole presentation was about. Appreciate it so much.
My honor. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Moving on, in our agenda, we have communications. I don't see any cards. And are there any written communications?
No written communication has come forward, President Rivas.
Okay, then we will move along to closed session. Item 1 of closed session, consideration of approval of conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A, OAH number 2024-06-0614. Closed session, item 2, closed session for student discipline, Ed Code 48900C, 48900D, and 48915C3, student expulsion hearing. And closed session item number 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to subdivision D4 of section 54956.9, 8 potential cases. We will be back shortly. Good. Okay, so we will resume the open meeting at 6:46. We were previously in closed session. For closed session, item 1, consideration of approval of conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A, OAH number 2024-06-0614. During the just concluded closed session, the board voted to approve settlement agreement for OAH number 2024-06-0614. Motion made by Mrs. Cobian, seconded by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. There were 5 ayes and 0 nays. For closed session item number 2, during closed session, the board discussed student discipline education code 48900C, 48900D, and 48915C3, student expulsion hearing case number SE003, 2023 to 2024. The district has recommended a full expulsion agreement for student in case number SE003, 2023, 2024. We will vote in open session. So board, is there a motion to accept the full expulsion agreement for student in case number SE003, 2023, 2024?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Segrist. We'll do a roll call vote. Mrs. Cobian?
Aye.
Mrs. Mendez Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Peralta?
Aye.
Rivas, aye. And Mr. Segrist?
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0. For closed session, item number 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to subdivision D4 of section 54956.9, 8 potential cases. No action was taken. Moving on to the approval of the minutes, we have 3 minutes to go through. So for item 1, consideration of approval of minutes for the June 17th, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0. Item 2, consideration approval of minutes for the June 22nd, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cobian. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And item 3, consideration of approval of minutes for the August 5th, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Peralta. Any second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Segrist. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to J, reports. We have the 2023-2024 Williams Uniform Complaint Policy Quarter 4 Summary Report.
Thank you. Good evening. Before you, not for consideration of approval, but just to share with you, is the fourth quarter Williams report from the 23-24 school year. Just as a reminder, Williams does an overview regarding textbook availability, facilities, and then teacher credentialing. And during the fourth quarter, which is April 1st through June 30th, 2024, there were no complaints filed.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to the public hearing. Public hearing regarding the sufficiency of pupil textbooks and instructional materials for the 2024-25 fiscal year. In compliance with Ed Code 60119, which covers the sufficiency of pupil textbooks and instructional materials, districts are required to hold a public hearing, allowing the public the opportunity to discuss matters in regards to the sufficiency of public textbooks and/or instructional materials. Is there anyone who wishes to comment in regards to the sufficiency of public textbooks and/or instructional materials? Okay, seeing no one approaching the mic, let the minutes reflect that a public hearing was conducted pursuant to Ed Code 60119 regarding the sufficiency of pupil textbooks and instructional materials for the 2024-25 fiscal year. Moving on to our action consent agenda, is there any item that a board member would like to pull for separate consideration?
I'll pull item number 2.
Okay, item number 2, any other items to pull? Okay, then do I hear a motion to accept the action consent items minus item 2?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Peralta,
I'll second.
seconded by Mrs. Cobian. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then we'll go back to item number 2. Consideration of approval of service and consultant contract approvals. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
A motion made by Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Segrist. Is there any discussion? Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstention?
I will abstain.
One abstention. The motion carries 4-0-1. Moving on to action items. Item number 1, consideration of approval to adopt Resolution 242501, Celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15 to October 15, 2024.
Good evening. For your consideration this evening is a resolution for the celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th. With over 3 million Hispanic students in California, our schools reflect a rich cultural heritage that has shaped both our state and our nation. Hispanic Americans have played a crucial role in our history and continue to make significant contributions across all sectors of society. Adopting this resolution reinforces our commitment to integrating the diverse experiences of Hispanic Americans into our curriculum, enriching our students' education, and celebrating the cultural diversity that strengthens our community.
All right. Thank you. Is there an item, a motion to approve item 1?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion?
Only a comment. I noticed that Africa is listed. Spanish-speaking is in Africa. It's Equatorial Guinea. It's the national language of Equatorial Guinea, the only country in Africa where they speak Spanish. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 2, consideration of approval to adopt Resolution 242502, celebration of National Literacy Month in September 2024.
Thank you. National Literacy Month is dedicated to promoting and enhancing literacy skills among students and the broader community. Literacy goes beyond the ability to read and write. It unlocks human potential and drives meaningful change in our world. By adopting this resolution, we acknowledge the power of education and our role in building a brighter future.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve item 2?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 3, consideration of approval to adopt Resolution 242503, sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials for the 24-25 fiscal year.
Thank you. For your consideration is a resolution stating that the Almani City School District has met the requirements of the Williams Settlement legislation for sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials for the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Peralta. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 4, consideration of approval of purchase orders.
Before you is the purchase order report for the month of June and July. It's quite extensive. There's $22.6 million worth of purchase orders on there. One of the reasons why this purchase order report is so large is because we set up a lot of our blanket purchase orders for the upcoming year, whether it be our food service purchase orders for food supplies that we're buying, maintenance, or utility blanket POs. And so one of the purchases that we would like to highlight, we talked about in the cabinet update, is our furniture refresh. We started with our TK, a few of our kinder and first grade classrooms and some of our special ed classrooms. We work with Lakeshore. We have them on a piggyback contract bid. And so they've been working with us to develop some renderings, and we work closely to see which renderings work the best for us. And the going rate these days is about $30,000 roughly per classroom. So that's what we can expect going forward as we look to expand the implementation. At last count, I believe we're at about just over 30 classrooms have been updated. So that's a little under 10% of our classrooms across the district. But we're excited to continue with that expansion throughout the school year, because I know when we introduce new furniture into the classroom, it really changes the environment in which students and staff can approach the day, right? So we're really excited about that, and you'll be seeing those purchase orders on this report and hopefully more purchase orders over the next few months as we expand our furniture refresh.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve item 4?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain, 401. Item 5, consideration of approval of the Memorandum of Understanding for Non-Credit Program Partnership between Almani City School District and Rio Hondo Community College District.
Yes, so we are excited about entering this agreement with Rio Hondo College to start partnership for a non-credit program with Rio Hondo College so that they can provide instruction to Potrero School and Columbia and engage our students in college courses for a dual enrollment program. And so that'll take place in the fall. And then we'll look again at possibly doing this again in the spring for possibly credit programs.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve item 5?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Cobian.
Yes, I have a comment. Why is it non-credit? My grandkids took credit classes in 5th grade and 7th grade. David just finished USC, and he counted credit classes. Why is it non-credit?
Right now, we're starting with with non-credit, Mr. Segrist, to get students used to it. And then that's why we're looking in the spring to move over to credit courses. One thing that can happen is these courses, if they don't do well in the course, it will stay on their transcript for college. And we want to make sure that they're fully supported, that they understand how this works. And so that's why we're starting off with the non-credit course and then hopefully moving to credit courses.
Because I noticed that Pasadena City College with South Pasadena Middle School, they have credit classes already. And I think that our children deserve the right to have that counted for credit. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we'll get there because we're just starting with these partnerships, and we want to make sure that we navigate all of the things as we're introducing dual enrollment to our students, to our families, as the college is getting to know us, our grading systems, our expectations. This is a really good entry point to eventually build on that program. And I just want to thank the board for their vision on this particular issue because we've have conversations with PCC coming up, which is exciting. And I think the more opportunities we can offer our students, the better. Thank you.
And I would like to congratulate Dr. Garcia for working with PCC because Dr. Gomez sends his regards. Thank you so much for following up with that too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any further discussion?
No, this is
Yes,
really
I forgot to
exciting.
mention about Rio Hondo. I happen to have attended a recent meeting up there where they dedicated the Career Technical Education Building after Congresswoman Grace Napolitano. It was wonderful. And Dr. Flores sends down her regards to you personally. Thank you.
I was going to say this is a really exciting opportunity. Mr. Segrist has a personal, I do too. In high school, I was doing summer theater at Citrus College without realizing that I was accruing credits. And it does come into play in college when maybe, your senior year, you don't have to take as many classes, right? So, no, that's great. I'm so glad we're heading in this direction. And we're obviously trying it out, being mindful of making sure our students feel successful in it first.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Well, now we're moving on to our board policy updates. And as you know, with changes in law and they're just our policies are in constant need of update. So we cycle through them and we have quite a few here. So I will go ahead and make the motion on each one of these just to move things along. But this will be our first reading of several policies. So item 1, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 2121 superintendent's contract. I will make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 2, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 3516 and administrative regulation 3516, emergency and disaster preparedness plan. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 3, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 3550 and administrative regulation 3550, food service child nutrition program. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion?
On this one, and this is for the next 3, I just wonder if you could kind of clarify and explain the part about charging for meals that comes with this.
So it doesn't necessarily apply to us, and we actually updated these same policies the last time we brought them. I want to say maybe it was April or May when we brought them. So it's just CSBA standard updating. A lot of school districts, didn't have the universal meal in place, right? We've had it in place for, over a decade, if not longer. So it provides clarity in the implementation. We would never pursue that, but we could provide a free meal, which we currently do. And if we wanted to, on top of that, we could sell a meal to students, which we don't. But it provides some of the board policy here in the area of food services to speak to that ability to, we have to at a minimum provide a free breakfast and a lunch. And then after that, then we could offer a meal a la carte for sale, which we don't, right? We want to provide our meals for free that are nutritious, right? So these updates that come from CSBA, they apply to all districts, but we were already complying with the universal meal even before the state decided to make it the law of the land 2 or 3 years ago. I believe it was 2 years when it went into effect across the state of California, because we were already providing free meals to our students. So as you read through the policy, we have the flexibility, but we would never pursue that because why would we sell meals to students if we're already providing free meals? But for many districts that did rely heavily on selling lunches or breakfast to kids, the transition to universal meals, it provides them that flexibility, right? Where they had a lot of meal sales, right? And now they have to provide a universal meal for free. That's the law that went into effect, I want to say 2 years ago. So it provides them that flexibility.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on item 3? Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 4, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 3551 and Administrative Regulation 3551, Food Service Operations Cafeteria Fund. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 5, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 3553 and Administrative Regulation 3553, free and reduced price meals. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 6, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 4112.9, 4212.9, 4312.9, and Exhibit 4112.9, 4212.9, 4312.9, employee notifications. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 7, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 4121 and Administrative Regulation 4121, temporary substitute personnel. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Do we compare the services and the rate that we pay substitutes with other districts around us?
Yes, we do. And actually, all of us personnel people, we sort of communicate that aspect just to ensure we're sort of in line as well.
So how do we stand compared to other districts?
I'd say we're probably at the top 50% or top 60% of people. Just depends, there's different variations as well, because there's your daily rate and then there's also your long-term sub rates. And some districts interpret the long-term differently, based on their policy.
Is there a scale in which if they work so many years, they keep going up and increase, or is it just a standard across the board?
It's a standard across the board, but we evaluate internally to see if are we competitive, are we able to fill our positions, and so on.
Okay, thank you.
I will say that the outlier districts that, because I have seen some rates that are at the very, very top. It's districts that have a hard time recruiting for substitutes and so forth. So
Okay.
you will see a few outliers out there, but I think to echo Mr. Sollenbach's point, we're pretty much in line with this region.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so calling for a vote for item 7. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 8, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 4161, 4261, 4361, and Administrative Regulation 4161, 4261, 4361, leaves. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 9, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulation 4161.1, 4261.1, 4361.1, personal illness injury leave. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 10, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulation 4161.2, 4261.2, 4361.2, personal leaves. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Made by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 11, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 5126 and Administrative Regulation 5126, awards for achievement. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 12, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 5141.21, administering medication and monitoring health conditions. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 13, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 5144 and Administrative Regulation 5144, discipline. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 14, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 6115 and Administrative Regulation 6115, ceremonies and observances. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 15, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 6141.2 and Administrative Regulation 6141.2, recognition of religious beliefs and customs. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 16, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 6175 and Administrative Regulation 6175, Migrant Education Program. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion?
I just have a question. We do have the Migrant Ed program, but we're combined with other districts?
No, the consortium actually is no longer.
No longer?
Together, but every district has their own migrant ed program. We receive migrant ed funding to support our students, which actually allows us to really create targeted programs for the individuals that still qualify for migrant education.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 17, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 7214 and Administrative Regulation 7214, General Obligation Bonds. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 18, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Bylaw 9320, meetings and notices. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Peralta. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And item 19, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Bylaw, Exhibit 1, 9323.2, actions by the board and deletion of Exhibit 2. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, board, for reading all of these and for being patient with the votes. Finally, for our discussion session, we have first on our agenda here to discuss artificial intelligence, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, President Rivas. One of the conversations that we've been having internally is that, when we were first, I wouldn't say made aware of artificial intelligence, but when we first started talking about it as a district, as an organization, because it's been around, right? It helps us kind of see the next movie that we're tuning into when we turn on Netflix and other different things. But all that to say that we immediately saw the opportunity to use artificial intelligence and to expose our students to artificial intelligence. And then we decided to really create this engagement process. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Pinedo to talk a little bit about that. But, I want to say that in this time where we've been really thinking about things and trying to be really thoughtful, the growth in artificial intelligence has just grown exponentially. And so the lesson in all of this is, this is something that, of course, we have to plan for and have to be ready for, but at the same time, we need to really start engaging our school community in what our next steps are around artificial intelligence. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Pinedo, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the work that we've been doing as a district, but really with this understanding that we can talk about it a lot, and there's much to talk about, and there's much to plan for, but the next really big step for us is really getting into it and making sure that it's a viable tool that we're allowing, exploring, giving people the green light to use in classrooms and outside. So I'll turn it over to Dr.
Sure,
Pinedo.
and perhaps we've been too thoughtful. And so there was a group that came together, kind of towards the end of last year, a lot of competing priorities at that time. But what that group did was, they looked at a lot of policies that were out there, and they looked at LACO's toolkit for artificial intelligence and decided to come up with some, guiding principles, but also realized we already have things in place, right? And so looked at board policy as well around academic honesty, and so around plagiarism and cheating, around student use of technology, which we already have in place, internet safety, and then even around digital citizenship. Every year our teachers use Common Sense Media lessons to teach certain lessons around internet safety, and now there's even lessons on artificial intelligence itself. And so we do have things in place already that allows us to move forward, right? And so this team created some guiding principles, to be able to use artificial intelligence within the school district, within our district, and in the classroom. And they felt it really important that we balance technology with the preservation of human elements, right? So we still have teachers that are afraid of, we don't want technology to completely take over. We want student creativity, right? And then there's a concern for bias and really making sure that teachers and students know how to check these resources for bias. And then, of course, making sure that students and teachers are aware of student privacy and safety and well-being. And then looking at really prioritizing equity and ethics as they're using these tools. And then supporting the development and future readiness of students to use this wonderful technology, and then increasing digital literacy skills. So these are the guiding principles as we're looking at artificial intelligence. And so now we're looking at what professional development do our teachers need. And so as we look at professional development, we don't want artificial intelligence to just be on its own. So as we develop professional development, even around content areas, how do we integrate professional development within those content area PDs that we're going to be doing? So that's what's going to be in the works. And then for our technology lead teachers, and then our early adopters of using artificial intelligence, we want them to start utilizing it. So showcasing at staff meetings, for teachers, this is a tool that you can use with your students, or this is a tool that you can use to make your job easier, right? As a teacher, a teaching tool, whether it's lesson planning or a way to just even find resources, right, for you to use as you're teaching. And then they're working on what is our professional development going to look like in January, because we do have some early out days that have been, that's the focus that's going to happen during January. And so I actually wanted to ask you, are there certain areas of focus in artificial intelligence that you have in mind that you want to make sure that we focus on during that time as well? Beyond ChatGPT that everybody. And my first experience actually was, walking through classrooms, and I remember one of our teachers, Mr. Cuevas, was like, "Have you heard of ChatGPT?" And that was my first time that I had experienced that. It's like way over a year ago. Yeah.
I recommend some resources to look into. Look at the Khan Academy, KHAN. They have a lot on artificial intelligence. Q also does, the computer using educators, a lot of information out there.
And last year we did have a group of teachers and even some of our computer specialists, lab specialists going to Q specifically for artificial intelligence, and our TOSAs as well for that integration of AI within the content areas.
Yeah, I'll go next. So a question and a comment on so we haven't yet been necessarily like offering like AI for teachers. Okay.
Not
so what we've done where I work is that, and it's been very popular, is we have, when we do our district-wide PDs, right, we do like a menu of options. And yeah, we have offered AI for educators, and a popular one is Magic School.
Yes.
So that's been one, but we have been purposeful. So I haven't been able to attend them because I'm usually presenting, but I just know a lot of teachers have really appreciated these sessions integrated, right, as part of an option of them to learn like the different tools to support with lesson planning. There's even an IEP goal generator feature on Magic School. Also ChatGPT, but I know that one's been really popular so far. Yeah. Yes, but it's a great response when it's been offered as part of like a PD option, and or like you were saying, just integrating it.
Yeah, so I think for me, I love all the opportunities, and I think, so I think the two sides, one is like usefulness, skills for teachers in order, like the lesson planning stuff, but also wondering like on the district side, so on the administrative side, are there programs, I don't know of any specifically, but I know that they exist, of, how the district is maybe incorporating that. And I'm just thinking in terms of like board policies and things like that, making sure that privacy is top of the line, and people understand what is when you share or ask the questions or enter your whatever it is for the AI to edit or improve or combine, whatever, that you're giving over that information. And then I think, in terms of students, one of the things that's, really interesting to me is educating students to identify, it's hard for all of us, but like, what are the tools you can use to validate the things that you're looking at? Like if you see on the internet a photo, if you see a document, if you see whatever, how students can almost be that fact checker themselves to, because I think it's just going to be harder and harder with, deep fakes and all that sort of thing, to make sure that our students are informed consumers of the media that's out there. And, not to be afraid of it, but to understand its capacity to, inform or trick or whatever as we move forward.
And it is quite controversial. The fellow who has invented AI that's credited, he said he wished he'd never done it. You got to think about that too.
I know we have some coding in our schools, and I'm not, I haven't looked to see, to what extent do our students code, but I do know that, against ChatGPT, but that it really explains coding very, very nicely. So it just explains, what the commands are and why, which I think is pretty amazing. And it could help our students just take, kind of leap forward in what kinds of things they can code or what programs they can code in. And another thing that was mentioned, I don't have a specific, tool to reference, but again, it was something that was brought up at NALEO, was that you had mentioned bias, right? That these open source ones tend to have right now more bias than, I'm not sure if the term is closed source, but AI that's been fed very specific, if it's specific to a certain discipline or a field, if it's been given, fed very, very specific information, then it tends to be more frequently correct, but also have a bit less bias. So that was just an interesting note, but again, no specific tool to mention there.
I think another one for me is the art generator ones, which I mean, they're kind of fun novelty things, but I think thinking of how students could use those to enhance what they do. And, even if it's, they've written something, they can create cover art or whatever that, and how you can use it and you add your own value and creativity to something. So it's sort of, how students can interact in a way that helps them to grow. So I think, those kind of are good ways, I think, that students can get entered into that stuff.
Yeah, along those lines, I've heard people say that they use Canva at work a lot, but the AI in Canva, right, to generate, social media posts or flyers or whatever, to just create that first round, and then you can just kind of, again, layering like what Mrs. Kobian was talking about, layering the human creativity with what AI generates.
I've used it personally to write some poetry, and I'm really impressed with how quickly it'll do it.
Yes. And it translates too. That's the other thing.
Very nice.
Maybe something else just to think about too is the interactive component. So I know there's, just been reading some articles, particularly for kids who have emotional needs, and then, and I don't know what our role in it is necessarily, but that kids can have very deep conversations with these chatbots, and figuring out what that means, and that may be a component of educating parents as well on sort of the safety and the what students really do have access to.
Yeah, thank you. Any other ideas or discussion?
I'm glad we're taking it on. I mean, we need to. So.
Yeah, thank you for opening this up for us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and then for item 2, future discussion items, are there any other items that we would like to note for further discussion?
I have one. Declining enrollment. I think that one of the answers, or possible answers, is the AAA. Advertise, advertise, advertise. I go by other districts and I see wonderful banners, dual enrollment, dual immersion. We need to do more of that in our schools because people, and also advertise what we do. The presentation tonight, I was so impressed with all of the wonderful offerings of our children. How many people in the public see that? I don't see it mentioned in the news media, print, or television, radio. Maybe we should connect with our local city council and report there about what we do and let people hear and see what we do. I don't think we do enough of that, and we really should, because what I saw tonight, I wish I had been a student in this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items?
I think one I'm just, interested in for the future is looking at what our cell phone policies are for students. I know LA Unified made a big leap in kind of thinking about how that's working for them. And, I've seen things of different issues that have now popped up because of that. But I think, along with the AI, like the use of the technology in the classrooms, and students' access and all of that. I think just to kind of have a, for us, like a sense of where we are in terms of our policies and enforcement, at the school sites, and then, what the other trends are and things like that.
Yeah, and we just got a CSBA update regarding that.
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Then that concludes our meeting, and I adjourn the meeting at 7:29.